Welcome to a very beautiful but very windy Southbourne beach. Let's try and find some big bass, shall we? So, a bit of an update for you all. I have been extremely busy, unfortunately, with not too much fishing. I'm quite lucky in my work that it does sometimes allow for a bit of travel around the world. So last night at about half two in the morning, I got back home after a week in Istanbul working there. Unfortunately, no fishing, although I did see tons of fishing rods, tons of anglers, which definitely was giving me the itch. And also some really cool contraptions. If you've ever been to Istanbul and you've walked along the bridges and the piers and everywhere around there, you'll know those wooden contraptions that I'm talking about, which are fantastic. Real good ingenuity, and maybe we should bring them to the UK. Anyway, I've got 6 days. It is Saturday, the something of September, the first Saturday in September, whatever that is, 4th, 5th, something like that. 6th, maybe? But a week today, Saturday the 13th of September, I'm flying back out again for work, this time to Mumbai. You'll pretty much see me there for a week. So what that does mean is that the uploads over the next few weeks might be a little bit erratic. I may miss some uploads. I'm hoping to get this one in before I go. But yes, bear with me please throughout September. I was really looking forward to having some big sessions at some big bass. Of course, moving into that autumnal stage, early September, when the big bass start to show, the codling appear across the south coast in a bit more numbers, and there can be some nice fish to be had. I'm also very conscious that we'll be moving into that winter period soon, which can seem like an absolute, it can be depressing. The winds have been here, it's been difficult to get out to sea. Today, for sure, is not a day for being on the boat. However, it is a day for finding some big bass. So let's do just that. Tactics today, I am seriously short for time. With all that travel that I mentioned, I got in back from the airport, back from Istanbul last night. I think I walked in the door about 2 a.m, half 2 in the morning, and I'm back out today to get a session in before my trip next week. So I have not had much time for preparation, rigs, anything like that. What I've done is I've got two of the most simplest rigs that probably exist in UK sea fishing. A 2-hook flapper and a pulley pennel. Both smashing rigs that do the business. Bait-wise, I've got squid and mackerel. On the pulley pennel, I'm going to be fishing a mackerel fillet about that big. And then from each mackerel that I'm using as bait, I'll take a little bit of the end tail to use on the 2-hook flapper. Grab our pennel hook. So there we have our first mackerel. Pulley pennel set up. Let's get that thrown out there first, shall we? Right, next up is the 2-hook flapper, which, let's be honest, is even simpler. Now, someone asked me in my last video when I was using a 2-hook flapper and I caught those bass in West Bay, and they asked if I could briefly explain it. Now, there are lots of videos out there about 2-hook flappers. They are, as I said, one of the most commonly used rigs probably in the UK, and I'm sure further beyond. What they are essentially is you've got your main rig body. I've got a clip there and a swivel at one end, and that is a roughly 4 foot long of 60 pound amnesia mono. Off of each one, you'll see I've got 2 hook lengths which are flapping around a flapper. Now, in swelly, wavy conditions like we're fishing in today, typically you'd want to use shorter hook lengths to avoid tangles. If it's calmer, if there's less tide, you can use more, but you can play around with it depending on what species you're wanting to target, what the conditions are, up to you. I've gone for relatively short ones because of course, this swell and chop, both ending in a size 2 surf and uptide Coxswain Rule size 2 hook. There's lots of different ways to attach the hook length onto the rig body. I've gone for, I can't remember which brand these are, but it's essentially one of those crimped down swivels that you can just slide onto the main line or your main rig body line even and crimp down. With this, I'm getting those little bits of mackerel tail, popping it onto the end of the hook. Super, super simple. Now with this rig, scratching around, I'm hoping for, could pick up bass still of course. I mean, a little bit of this, you could get a little ray with it too. I do prefer when ray fishing though, bigger, sentier baits I can leave out for longer, but rays aren't necessarily on my mind today. They could happen, but it is bass. Bass is what I'm after. A good September awesome bass. A big one at that too. But yeah, this could scratch around. Bream may well come to this. We shall see. All right, let's get this one flung out too. All right, well, these have been out for a good 20-30 minutes. That tide is ripping through, or ripping in, I should say. I'm probably going to get pushed back up the beach even further, because with these storms and a growing tide, flood tide of course, it will come quite high up the beach. Let's check these, shall we? Oh. Right, well, there's a tiny bit of weed, but the first good sign is that other than that, there's absolutely no weed in the water. That is going to make fishing a lot easier. First cast on the flapper rig, and I'll just bring it in to rebait actually, because it's been out for about 30 minutes. First cast, target species. Not the size we're after, of course, but a very, very small schoolie bass. But as expected, in this swell, in this surf, there'll be tons of bass in there feeding. And that came to those the little size 2 hooks on a flapper rig with a tiny scrap of mackerel. I'm going to switch it out to some squid, just because it'll stay on the hook a bit better in this swell. There we go. We'll get this little chat back, but we're off the board. Well, a couple of guys have set up just to the bay, just to the side of me. Came over and asked if I'd had any weed on my lines at all, and I said no, apart from that one little bit that I showed you guys earlier. It's been weed free, which is fantastic considering how much wind we've got blowing into the bay at the minute. I think they mentioned they're after some rays, which to be honest, I would not mind if I bumped into a ray. My big mackerel bait that I've got sent out there at the moment could 100% find us a ray. But we'll see, we'll see. It's, you know what, it's weird to be back out on the beach. I have not beach fished, shore fished, as I said, for quite some months, where I've properly had my big rods out. We had that little play around on West Bay last week, but yeah, it's been pretty boat focused lately, which I typically do over summer because the beaches do get busy. The fishing can be incredible all year round on the boat, to be fair, whereas the shore does slow down, has its good times and bad times, whereas the boat you can normally always find a good session. Last year I fished Chesil a lot. I fished Chesil probably at least once a month throughout the year. This year I haven't fished it since like February time. So all that mackerel rush and all the, you know, absolute crowds that we've been seeing on social media, or if you've been down there yourself of course, in person, yeah, I've kept clear of that. Having said that, next month there is a big Chesil trip, another overnighter, I think 2 or 3 nights, or 2 nights, down Chesil, similar to last year, but with a slightly different group. So really looking forward to that. That'll be an absolute adventure, and hopefully we'll find some good fish too. Oh, that's a nice photo. If you're seeing this clip, I've just seen the photo I'm using for the thumbnail. It's quite warm still. Right, so let's have a talk, shall we? I feel this moving into the autumnal phase is quite often a good moment to take stock of how the year's been so far, fishing wise, and what opportunity there is left with the remaining months to make up for some sessions that might not have gone so well. So, as I mentioned earlier, we've had some fantastic days out on the boat. I think this year, for me at least, has been all about the rays. We've had some really, really good ray fishing. There's a mark that I've fished before, but I spent a lot more time on it this year, and it has been quite fruitful. As you would have seen, we've had double figure blondes, double figure small eyes, thornbacks off it, some really, really lovely fish. Double figure ungulates, of course. So yeah, the ray fishing this year has been top notch. We had some congers that, you know, running just up to or just under double figures, but nothing massive. But you know, good to have, fun to have. The bass fishing this year, I've had a lot of bass on the boat, but they've all been so far pretty small. Normally by this time of year, you know, I've had a few 60 centimetre plus bass, you know, 4 or 5 pushing onto the boat. But I think probably the biggest bass I've had this year is about 3-4 pound maybe at best, but that's why we're out here today, trying to put an end to that. Now, something which I definitely haven't done, and I'm not sure I'm going to get around to doing, is a big tope session. In fact, have we even had any tope this year? I might have had one on Martin's boat when we did the night fishing. I can't remember if it was a smooth down or a tope. By the way, tope fishing we've missed out on a little bit. Of course, Chesil, as I mentioned earlier, just haven't really touched it this year, intentionally. It's something I've not fished, but I think over the next few months we will definitely do some more Chesil sessions, so expect them coming to the channel soon. So, talking about the next few months, what's our plan of attack? Well, as I mentioned, next month, October, we have the weekend, or long weekend nearly, at Chesil. Now, middle of October, so that is going to be, I think, rays, big bass and cod. Note, I'm saying cod, not codling. I want a nice big cod. They do appear, double figure cod do show up at Chesil, and there's no reason why it couldn't happen. We had a really good codling session last year. I think we had like 4 or 5 codling in a session in late August, actually. It was around this time of year. And I know a lot of these winds, I've seen a few reports over the last couple of days, there's been a fair few codling caught this week, in fact. So it's looking good, looking good. The squid season's here, of course. The squid have come to our inshore waters in numbers, by the looks of it, which is always great. We had a really good squid season last year, and the moons are aligning, the stars are aligning for much of the same this year. So I know I've had a few goes for squid already, but we'll definitely look to do some big squid sessions. It's just good fun, good eating, good bait, and it's good fun fishing in my eyes. So also in October, we've got penciled in the diary, myself and Martin from Wally B Diaries, we're going for a Paul Beagle. We've put it in the diary, so as long as the weather is playing ball, then fingers crossed I'll land my first Paul Beagle. I've invested in some new rods and some new line and some new bits and bobs. We've done shark fishing in terms of tope fishing and all that kind of stuff plenty of times before, but the Paul Beagles and the Threshers I've never gone for. So I feel it's time to step up and go for them. I'm super excited. Even a blue shark I'd be thrilled with. But yeah, as long as the weather window allows, then that's happening in October. And what else? And then I think, yeah, from there we'll be moving into November, December. I do want to get down to the Bristol Channel again maybe before the end of the year. I still have unfinished business, of course. Last time I blanked and Martin had that lovely thornback ray. So if I can make amends, that would be fantastic. Oh, and also, September the 20th, Saturday, September the 20th, myself and a fair few others actually, both Martin, Darren, we're all going down to the Southampton Boat Show. So if anyone is planning to go down on that day, then do keep an eye out, because we'll be around all day. It'll be great to meet anyone else that's down there. Okay, that's probably a good little update. Go back to fishing. Right, well, I've seen a few little knocks on this right-hand rod, the flapper rod. It's very hard to tell with this swell what's a bite and what are just waves, but we'll give it a check anyway. It was my imagination, never mind. Well, I have to say, I've nearly forgotten just how enjoyable shore fishing or beach fishing can be. You don't catch anything, so you just sat there relaxing, looking at the scenery. Of course, I'm joking. But no, it's been lovely. I've been sat here watching the sunset, just watching the waves, watching the world go by, and it has been fantastic. We've only had that one fish, one bass, and still of course hopeful for more. But if I was on the boat now, I'd be resetting the drift, I'd be rocking around. This is very relaxing, I must say. Especially after a week of travel and all that kind of stuff. I was in two minds. I really wanted to get out for a session today, but having only got back from the airport the early hours of this morning, I didn't know if I was going to push myself a bit too hard. I'm really thankful that I have come out. Alright, well this might make some of you chuckle. When I was scrambling around to try and find all my equipment, my rigs and rods and everything, all my beach stuff I haven't used in ages, I was trying to dig out my tip lights, which of course I haven't used for a few months, to get them charged up and ready to go, and pretty much none of them were working. They were all rusted up and wouldn't charge, and to be honest, I won't name the brand, but I've had quite a few of this particular tip light and I've had nothing but issues with it. They've flung off in a cast and ended up in the sea. They've, you know, broken just for no reason, straight out of the box, that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to use them. If anyone's got a really good recommendation for tip lights, do let me know. I actually just ended up grabbing a few little mini glow sticks that people often use, including myself, when squid jigging. They were on the side from one of the squid jigging sessions that we did a few weeks ago, me and Darren. Didn't find any at the time, but I've got loads of these lying around. So put some in my tackle box, a few zip ties, and these will do the job. If anyone's got a really good recommendation for some reliable, solid tip lights that won't break, won't fling off the rod, will stay attached, can recharge them, that kind of stuff, and yeah, let me know. No idea if that will stay put when casting, but we'll soon find out. Well, for as nice as it has been out here, it is not fish well at all. As you can probably tell, it is pretty much pitch black right now. The sun is completely set. It is a nice evening. The winds have kind of calmed a little bit. The swell's calmed. So is the fishing, to be honest. Apart from that one bass, nothing else to report. But yeah, we're nearly at the top of the tide now. I think in the next 20-30 minutes, it will be slack water, high water slack. I think my plan is probably going to be to fish 40 to 60 minutes, might do an hour of that tide back down. Hopefully that starts to pick up the fishing, and we'll see what we can do. I've been alternating the baits pretty much all night between mackerel, squid, different sizes. I would have liked a bit of worm bait, you know, some live ragworm to help scratch something out, but I just didn't get a chance to go and sort any or dig any or buy any, whatever. I just came down here with grabbed some stuff out of the freezer and came fishing pretty much, which is, you know, all you can do sometimes. Now, all this time I've had working and struggling to get videos together and fishing and all that kind of stuff, I do have pretty much the whole of December off, apart from I think 1 week, maybe 1 or 2 weeks. Pretty much the whole of December I have got off as annual leave, so hopefully we can find some fish in December, because we'll certainly be trying. I do look forward to that. It's really kind of putting some time into ticking off some targets that I haven't been able to do this year yet. I wanted to get into triggerfish this year, actually, again down at Chesil, but I've just not had the time. But that's a question for you guys, actually. Is there anything you would like to see me target or do on this channel? Any big trip, any adventures? What kind of content, what kind of videos do you want to see me put out there? I would genuinely appreciate a bit of, you know, a bit of guidance as to what you like watching. Do you enjoy the bigger trips, the big adventures to, you know, the overnighters and the big specials like the Falmouth stuff? Would you rather see less videos but more of them be big specials? Or do you prefer these more kind of informal, just chilled, laid back sessions? You know, I've not done any kind of tackle or kit reviews in a long time, actually. I've been meaning to do, I want to do one for this Bigaloo, which I've been using now for about a year or so. Also my tripods, the, what's it called? I've forgotten the name of it now. Of course, that was it, the Achios Sea Legs. Now, I was really interested in this tripod when it first came out, about a year ago, I think. It was around nearly this time last year, actually. And I've used it heavily, all over, you know, Cornwall, Bristol Channel, taking it to Brighton, all over the place. I've used it quite a lot. So I feel like I could do a thorough review on both those things. But yeah, let me know. Well, I'm signing off there. It's just not happening tonight. With these conditions, I was really excited and hopeful that the bass would start showing, especially the time of the year, but just hasn't happened. It is what it is. As I mentioned earlier, please do bear with me over the next few weeks where uploads might be slightly delayed or they might be missing in terms of weeks missing. I will try and get this one up and ready for the Monday coming, but if you're seeing it a bit later than that, then I apologise. Once this month is out of the way though, the next few months we've got some awesome trips planned, as I mentioned. There'll be lots more time for fishing, some bigger trips, some more adventures, and definitely some special fish coming. I'm determined to get some pretty nice fish onto the channel this year, or before the end of the year at least. I massively appreciate your continued support, all of you guys that are commenting, that like all the videos, that show so much support. I really appreciate it. If you're not already subscribed and you enjoy the content, this video or some of the bigger, more adventurous videos that I've done in the past, you know, I put a lot of time in trying to make entertaining stories, not just fishing videos where I'm sat there just pointing a camera at myself. I try to put a bit more story, a bit more emotion, the emotion that I feel when I'm having these fishing adventures. I try to portray that in the best way that I can, and I'm still learning for sure. But regardless, I really appreciate the support. Please subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff, and I'll see you on the next one.